For more great retail real estate content, like, share, and subscribe. Now, business plans kind of have a reputation of being like the khaki pants of the written word, right? Boring, no one's idea of a good time. But really, business plans are a lot more like your Met Gala outfit. They are there so that you can make an entrance to show your confidence and your personality, and they're actually incredibly powerful when they're done right. So why is this the case? Well, when it comes to bricks and mortar, business plans are going to hold all the critical information that both you and a landlord need to strike a great deal. So we're going to talk about why that's the case, and we'll talk through everything. But first, I want to take a moment to talk about commercial leases in general. So when you are looking for a space for your bricks and mortar business, you're looking for a commercial retail lease. These leases are 5 to 10 year legally binding contracts. It is not like renting an apartment. It's not even like buying a house. It's a lot more like a marriage. And if you know this, marriages on average last about 8.2 years. So this is really the level of commitment that we're talking about. So the question about your lease really is, how do I know that this is the right relationship for me? How do I know I'm making the right commitment? Because it is so serious. Well, that's why you need the business plan. The business plan is going to be the tool that helps you determine whether a lease agreement is the right one for you and whether you should commit to it. So let's talk about business plans in general. Now, all retail business plans are going to include essentially the same set of information because these are the main questions that you need to know to run a business effectively. So the sections in a business plan are your business concept. This is, what are you selling? What are you offering to customers? What exactly are you doing in this business? Your team, that's your expertise, who is bringing the experience and the heat to your team. The location, where does your space need to be? Where do you want to open this business? What kind of space should it be? The target market, this is your customer. Who is your customer? Who's going to buy from you? Your marketing strategy is, how do you get those customers into your door and encourage them to purchase from you? Operations are how you run your business on a day-to-day level. And of course, the all-important financial projections, because no plan is complete without the financial projections. So great, this is a business plan. I understand what's in it, but what does this have to do with finding a retail space, right? Can I just walk down the street and see a for lease sign and call the number? No, that's not the way to do it. It's a little bit of a trick. That's a story for another day. But the point is that you need to go about this process in a measured, smart way. And that starts with the business plan. And the last thing you're doing is calling about spaces. So let's go ahead and dive in a little more. The business plan is so important for finding the right space and striking the right deal because it's going to answer 3 really critical questions. The first question is, which space is right for me? How do I know what to look for? How do I know when I found the right one? The second question is, what can I afford? What can I afford to pay in monthly rent? And what can I afford to spend to build out the space, to turn it from what it is right now into what I need it to look like when I open? And then the third question is really one that a landlord is going to be asking about you. And that is, why should I rent the space to you? Why should the landlord strike a lease with you? And here's a little spoiler. They're probably not going to ask you directly. They are going to ask for your business plan, and they're going to expect to get all the information they need from it. So these are all the 3 important questions that your business plan is going to answer when it comes to finding the right space. So let's go ahead and dive into the first one. Which space is right for me? So this question really has to do with a few different components. The first being size and layout. So size and layout. Size is incredibly important when it comes to retail spaces because commercial rents are quoted on a per square foot basis. That means that typically the more space you occupy, the more square footage, the more you're going to be paying in rent. So it's so important to know how much space your business really needs because you certainly don't want to be paying on a space that's much too big for your business. Layout, similarly, you can move things around inside your walls pretty easily, but it's a lot more difficult to move things like exterior walls or ceiling heights. So you really want to understand what layout you need for your space if you have particular requirements. Now, the next piece is really big, and this is operational requirements. These are things that your business needs in order to function. So they're really non-negotiables. We're talking about maybe your business needs outdoor space. Maybe it needs special loading, like you have things that need to come in through a big bay door. If you're cooking, you'll almost certainly have certain ventilation requirements. You'll have electrical and plumbing requirements as well. So identifying the operational requirements in the beginning allows you to spend your time looking at spaces that are actually going to work for you. And then finally, the location. So the location is determined really by evaluating your market analysis, understanding your customer base, and understanding what their habits and traffic patterns are. Because you can have the most gorgeous, fabulous space somewhere, but if it's in a location where your customers can't or won't go, it's of really little value. So all of these questions are going to come out in the writing of your business plan. So let's move on to the second question, which is, what can I afford? Now, not surprisingly, this is everyone's least favorite question, but it's incredibly important, and we'll talk about why. So let's remember here that we are talking about a business plan. This is a plan for a business. And the point of a business is to make money. And in retailing, we are selling things for a price that is higher than what it costs us to buy them or to buy it or to make it. So you have to show how your business is going to make money. Now, you will also talk about your mission and your vision and the reason that you're doing this business entirely, but without the financials, without understanding how your business is going to make money, it's really just an idea. So the exercises that you do in the business plan to do your financial planning are incredibly important, and it's what makes the plan a plan. So any legitimate business plan is going to include two things at a minimum. One is a 5-year profit and loss projection, a projection of your sales and your expenses, and your capital budget, which is how much you need to get open. We're going to talk a little more about those. So first, let's talk about the 5-year P&L. So why 5 years? Why do I need to project out my sales and my expenses for 5 years? Well, remember, that's how long commercial leases last. So you and your landlord are going to want to know, can I afford this rent for the entire term of the lease? So going through your P&L, making these projections allows you to really dial in to a rent number that is going to be comfortable for you for the long haul. So it can be really uncomfortable coming up with these projections because you're not a psychic, and if you are, call me, but it's really difficult for us to predict the future. So what we have to do is rely on educated guesses, rely on research, rely on data, and also make some smart assumptions so we can project out what our sales are going to be and what our expenses are going to be, so we can really dial into that rent number. The second big piece in your financial package is going to be your capital budget. So you have to determine before you commit to a space how much it's going to cost you to get open. That's from wherever you are right now to opening day and a little bit beyond, because you need to make sure you've got cushion as your business is ramping up. So typically the biggest line item on a capital budget is going to be your build out cost, the cost it takes you from turning the space from what it is right now into what you need it to be. But that's not the only cost. You are going to be spending money on permits, marketing, the inventory that you'll be selling later, decor, staff training. There is no shortage of places for you to spend cash. And so it's really important that you understand how much you need to get open and if you can get it in time to fund this. Because once you sign the lease, it is too late. You cannot call your landlord 2 months after you sign and say, "Ooh, yeah, sorry, I just don't have the money to build it out." It doesn't work like that. When you sign the lease, that rent is due, you are committed. So you have to know how much it's going to take you to get to opening day, and you've got to make sure you can get that money in time. So the great part about doing this financial modeling, even though it can feel really daunting, is that it allows you the ability to walk away from spaces that just aren't going to work for you. So you're going to put together your 5-year P&L, and you're going to put together your capital budget, and it's going to allow you to focus in on spaces that work with your budget, that are actually going to be worth your time exploring. So think of it this way. If you determine that you've got a budget for a Honda Accord, you're not going to go test driving a Porsche, because it's going to be really great and you're going to love it and you're going to want it, and you're going to spend the rest of the week thinking about how you can sell a kidney to make it happen. Well, that is not how you want to start a business. So doing the planning ahead of time is incredibly important. So now let's move on to the third question. And as I mentioned before, this is a question that a landlord is going to be asking of you. And they're not going to ask you directly. They might ask you some of these questions, but they're really going to ask for your business plan and expect to get the information they need. What do they need to know? They need to know, what is this business? Is the person in charge capable of running it? Can they afford the rent? Will this business be a welcome addition to my property? So they're going to want to see your business plan so that they can determine this information and make their own judgments, because the landlord is the one that's going to decide whether or not to even write a lease with you. It's like they own the property. So it's just like if you own a home, you get to decide who you're going to rent your guest room out to. It's the landlord's determination and it's their decision. So you really want to make sure you are giving them the information they need, because if it's not easily available to them, they're probably not going to ask you for more. You got one shot to show them what they need and to really make a great impression. So it's a great opportunity to really sell yourself and to sell your business. So let's talk a second about landlords. Landlords are among a group that we call gatekeepers. What are gatekeepers? Gatekeepers are anybody who you need to say yes to you to open a door along this path. They can be landlords, bankers, investors, your partner, anybody who you need to say yes. And sometimes it can feel uncomfortable dealing with them, because they can initially come across as maybe gruff or aloof. And it's not because they're jerks, not at all. It's because they are professional business people too. And they want to spend their time working with individuals who are prepared, determined, and really have the showmanship to deliver on a retail business. And so the business plan is your opportunity. It's not just the requirement, but it's the opportunity to show that you have this. Because think about it from their perspective. If someone is not willing to put in the effort to put together a well-written, well-presented business plan, why should they believe that you've got what it takes to actually run a successful business? Because running a retail business is a lot harder than writing a business plan. So you really want to show that you're serious. And that's why this is often the first question that these gatekeepers are going to ask. They're going to say, hey, can you just send me your business plan before they'll meet with you? That's because they want to see if you've even done it. Because if you haven't done it, they're really not going to waste their time. And why should they? So understand that your business plan is really going to be a requirement for lots of people beyond just your landlord. So let's make a little sidetrack here about landlords. Like I said, most landlords overwhelmingly are going to ask for your business plan. If a landlord does not ask for your business plan and is still interested in writing a lease with you, that is a major red flag. Landlords are in the business of making deals that are mutually beneficial, where they're going to make money and you're going to make money. That's how things work when it's going well. So good landlords want you to be successful. So if a landlord is willing to sign a binding contract with you where you're going to owe them money and they don't seem to care how or if you're going to be able to do that, you should very much be aware of that, because when you sign that lease, your rent is due. It's due contractually. So you've got to pay that rent whether you can afford it or not. So if someone's willing to have you sign on a dotted line without really understanding if you can afford it, that's something that you really need to know and be willing to give that a second thought. So